Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Alongside Podcast, which is a production of Heritage Baptist Church. The purpose of this podcast is to come alongside other followers of Christ in order to have thoughtful conversations about the gospel, culture, and the church. I'm your host, Mike Crump, one of the pastors here at Heritage, and today I am joined by our pastor of administration, Ben Melin. Ben is husband to Jessica and father to 6 incredible kids. He is a multi-talented guy who could build a spreadsheet, all while navigating himself out of the woods with only a compass and probably a sharp stick or something like that. Ben, welcome to the Alongside Podcast.
It's great to be here.
It's, you're here. You're not new to this table we're sitting at. In fact, you just had a great recording with Pastor Jeff not long ago.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun trying to get one another to laugh with some good dad jokes.
Yes,
so, yep.
And you don't laugh at much, apparently.
If I'm told not to, then no. I'm trying to win, so the goal was not to laugh, so I tried not to.
That's nice. That's very good. Well, you and I we've got a deep connection because we were, pastoral assistants together.
That's true.
Back in
the
the
mafia,
day.
yeah.
And learning how to, deal with, the things in the office while also scrounging around for food and various other things in the kitchens. So
that's true. We did get to know all of the kitchens very well with all the leftovers.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the podcast today, we want to hear your story and really starting from the beginning of your journey with Christ. I love having the pastors on here just to share about, one, how you came to know the Lord. So if you could just start there, how did God draw you to himself?
Sure, yeah. So probably like a lot of folks in our church, I grew up in a Christian home when I was little. My dad was a pastor, and so just a lot of biblical knowledge and teaching. And at the age of 5, I remember sitting on the couch with my mom, and she brought me through, the gospel and had questions about it. And so I prayed a prayer, and that was about all that was just a prayer. I don't think it got past the roof of my home. Mm-hmm. And over the next several years, didn't really mean anything other than I thought I had some fire insurance, I suppose. And I distinctly remember at the age of 10, I was in my bed, just kind of thinking through some things, and all of a sudden, just as my mind kind of started to wander, I got really scared and thought about, man, if I go to sleep and never wake up, what's going to happen? And in that moment, I remember being terrified. Just what I believe is just the Lord drawing me to himself during that time. Just so scared that if I were to fall asleep, I would wake up in hell. And so as a 10-year-old boy, just starting to sob in my bed, of course, my parents wondering, what's happening. So my mom comes in, and I just kind of explained to her that I have this fear of falling asleep and never waking up again. I didn't know where I was going to go. And so she explained to me, again, the gospel. And that night, I put my true faith in Jesus Christ. And since that time, have grown through different stages, was in church, youth group, and went on a missions trip, and just a lot of growth opportunities for me during those younger years.
Gotcha. So at 10 years old, and I think you bring up an interesting point. I think a lot of parents wrestle with the concept of hell, even for a kid of 10 years old or even younger. Mm-hmm. But I think there's an importance of helping them understand that reality, not because they're trying to just scare them into believing something, mm-hmm. But because there is a weight there that I think can be impressed on kids and help them really discern, what reality is. And so, I know even talking with my son about that, he had all sorts of questions about it, and it helped kind of bring a seriousness to our faith, and that, hey, there mm-hmm. is not only to our faith, but also the importance of sharing it with others and sharing the gospel.
Yeah, I think, the Lord uses different things to draw people to himself, and for me, that seemed to be the thing that was most evident to me, was the fact that that's where I was destined to go if nothing else changed. And so... in my life, that was definitely a key component to my salvation.
So from that point, you're 10 years old, you're growing up. Who were some of the gospel influences in your life, even growing up from that point in your maturity and growth in Christ?
My parents, I would say, first off, was very influential my entire life. I mean, they kept me in church, and so watching them just read the Bible, pray every day. So a lot of the Christian disciplines I learned very young, just growing up in a Christian home. Later on, my high school years, I ended up changing youth groups my freshman year of high school. And I think that really was a turning point for me. There was only 3 Christians in my high school, and the 2 other believers, they went to this other youth group, and so I joined them, and it really impacted my life. It was a very large youth group. There were, I think, 800 or 900 kids that would show up on a Wednesday night, and so they had a whole host of volunteers that would come, and they actually broke the youth group down by what high school you went to, and so I was in this core group of 2 different high schools, and during that time, I met a guy who was probably 19 or 20 years old. He was our small group leader, and through his influence in my life, really taught me how to pray, how to read my Bible, and worship more intimately with Jesus.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the impact of youth and others, that's what I'm so thankful for, even here at Heritage and our student ministries, and having those moments with those kids. So now you're in youth, and you're learning to follow Jesus, but you end up eventually in the military. And what was that journey like?
Yeah, so my senior years when 9/11 happened, I remember vividly my teacher coming in, turning on the TV in the classroom, and at that time, everyone just watching in complete silence as the Twin Towers fell. And it really impacted me and a lot of my classmates. A lot of folks in my high school decided to join the military, and so for me it was kind of a dual purpose. One, I did want to serve and help out in that way, given what had happened to our country. And then also, I needed to pay for college. And so the military offers some great benefits in order to help pay for college. And so, a week after I graduated from high school, I went off to basic training and joined the military.
Nice. Now, we just had Mike Morricon in here, and he was talking about his experience in basic. What was yours like? It was pretty easygoing, probably.
I wouldn't call it easygoing. It's definitely a unique experience. I mean, I remember vividly, you go through reception, and then you get all your equipment and things, and there's the kind of day one of basic training, and you're on this bus, people come on, start yelling like you might see in the movies, and everyone is like out on this dirt field, and there's this huge pile of A bags, and so you start off to, they what they call smoking you, and so you do these push-ups over and over again, and then they give you 30 seconds to go find your bag, which obviously isn't doable when there's like 100 people there, and you obviously didn't make the time hack, and so you come back and do more push-ups, and I remember looking around as what I would consider grown men crying around me, as this was clearly not what they had in mind, and so that was just kind of the start to a couple of months of fun, I suppose. and
a start to a career in the military. And you also met your wife in the military? Yeah.
So after basic training, I went to Liberty University, both to run on their track team, but then I also joined their ROTC program because I wanted to be an officer. And so that is where I met my wife, Jessica, for the first time. We were both in ROTC together. She was the first sergeant. I was a freshman. She was an upperclassman. I remember her pronouncing my last name incorrectly. And
it's like Melin.
So I of course I corrected her, and she didn't really seem to care too much. And one day, obviously, that now she bears the burden of this goofy last name. And so we initially met in ROTC, and a few years later got engaged, and we got married my junior year of college.
Okay, excellent. And so she still outranks you in the household, kind of one of those.
Oh yeah. It's good to listen to your wife. That's some good advice, I think, for anybody.
And now you guys have 6 kids.
Yeah.
And you just recently had twins not too long ago.
Yeah, they're almost 2 now.
That's crazy.
Yep. And they've grown up in COVID, so that'll be a fun thing to look at. Looking back at all the pictures and things of them.
Yeah, and so you had twins, and you got that under your belt, and then you decided here recently that it's puppy time.
Yeah, the twins started sleeping through the night, and so we thought, hey, now that we've hit this calm, let's go ahead and bring a puppy into the mix. And after years of begging, my kids have just been on me. I mean, it probably came up once a week for the last few years in my home at the dinner table, and so I did finally cave, and we now have this wonderful little puppy.
And so the question is, does the puppy love you more than everyone else? Because that's usually how it works. The guy who fights against the puppy ends up loving the puppy the most.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not there as much,
Okay,
and so
okay.
I think she probably likes my son Benjamin the most.
Nice.
They're pretty good pals
Good
at this
pals.
point. Yep.
Fantastic. So you're in the military, and how do you end up in pastoral ministry? I mean, that seems like a pretty big jump.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. So I'm trying to think back here. So I'd been deployed to Iraq twice. At this point, I had a teaching assignment at Virginia State University. So this is kind of in the Richmond area. And so during that 3-year process, we had gone to a little bit of a larger church, and we had formed a small group with some of the other pastors, and really a lot of it was through what started off as, I think, sarcasm of like, hey, you should be a pastor too, kind of developed into more of a serious thought, at least from their vantage point too, as when we were leaving, it was time to leave that assignment. They really challenged me and said, no, you should look at your giftings and see if this is something that would fit what God has equipped you to do. And so I think for the first time, I really thought seriously about, hey, God's gifted me in these ways with these things. Like, what should I do with those? Because at this point, the military had just been the default in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I had a really good career. Things were progressing well. And it was during that time that there was some big cuts in the Department of Defense budget, and so my teaching position actually came to an abrupt end, and so there was no more funding for it at that point, and so Jessica and I were really left with a big decision as to what was going to be next. So all these things were kind of happening at the same time. We really felt like God was leading me away from the military. The question was, what are we going to do? And so our first thought was cross-cultural missions. Like, maybe we should go overseas. So we were part of a Southern Baptist church at the time, and so we applied for the IMB, went through the interview process, and that became clear that wasn't the route for us. And so we moved back to Lynchburg, which is where we had a house, and we went to North Africa for a few weeks to visit some friends that we have there doing some work. And again, it seemed clear that wasn't the spot for us. And so we landed back in Lynchburg, and I remember talking to Keith Manuel at a Wendy's and just picking his brain, like, hey, what does this administrative pastor thing look like? And so as he explained it, I kind of thought to myself, that does kind of seem to match what some of these other guys have said that they could see me doing. Yeah. And so that was, early spring, and there was a men's conference. This was 6 years ago, and I just so happened to be roommates with Pastor Adam Bowers at the time, and he was the executive pastor. And as we got to talking, one thing led to another, and when I came back from that trip about a month later, I really knew that the Lord was calling me into full-time pastoral ministry. It was at that conference to where I truly did surrender my life to full-time ministry, and so I started seminary at Liberty. It's a nice, convenient location, and everyone else seemed to go there.
Yeah, it just seemed
like the place to be. Yeah,
that's what you're doing.
And then I got a job as a pastoral assistant working for Pastor Adam at that time, and things just seemed to really be rolling in that direction. Things were falling in place. Got into seminary, and was here on staff. So that was back in 2000. I guess 16 is when all that. All that was happening. Or 2015, 2016.
And then you ended up in Qatar, right? I mean, there was kind of a break, but yet, school continued, but things changed.
That was a hard hurdle for me to get through. It just, I have a bit of a logical brain, and it didn't make sense for me. I had finally gotten into seminary, and I was on this pastoral track. I was a pastoral assistant, and I think it was probably a month or so after getting the job as a pastoral assistant, I was notified that I was a company commander at the time and with the National Guard, and they notified me that, hey, we're going to go on a year-long deployment to Qatar, and oh, by the way, we want you to come in about 6 months early just to get the guys ready to go with all the planning. And so I really left scratching my head thinking, did I miss something? Maybe I'm not supposed to be in full-time pastoral ministry. I mean, I felt like I was on this downhill slope towards full-time vocational ministry, and all of a sudden there's this deployment that's come up to Qatar. Looking back, though, just seeing God's hand of blessing on my life and His sovereign plan, I was able to use the opportunities of being away from home, which most wouldn't see as opportunity, but from an educational standpoint, I really had no other responsibilities other than being a company commander. But in the evenings, when I'm normally spending that time with my family, I could just work on schoolwork. So, I mean, I completed, I think it was 33 credit hours in like an 8-month point. And so I was able to really go full speed ahead on my classes and finish seminary while I was over there. So when I came back, picked up the pastoral assistant position again, which led into that fateful day when we all got voted in. The rest is kind of history as far as, so that's sort of my route to the pastorate.
I can definitely see the benefit of having that isolated time, because at the same time, we graduated in the same class. And so I remember just that tension of doing schoolwork and then the family and all those kind of things. Yet at the same time, I guess the trade-off is you do miss your family.
Of course, but I mean, Jessica was doing all the hard work at home, and I could sit in my little room in Qatar and work on schoolwork essentially for hours on end. So I slept, I did my job as a company commander, and I did schoolwork.
And you did schoolwork.
So that was my life for about a year.
Very nice. Now you have kind of, even after coming on as a pastor here at Heritage, your job and your position has kind of changed multiple times, at least in name. But you're kind of like the catch-all guy as well.
Yeah, I like to call myself the Miscellaneous. Like it's all the stuff that nobody else wants to do ends up kind of in my office, and I make sure it gets done. And I truly do love the support role that I have. I mean, as I look around me, you guys, yourself included, are so gifted in what you do, and there are things that I can't do, but there's all these other miscellaneous things that I can take off of, I think, your guys' plate, and so that you can do what you do well. And so I truly do love serving the rest of the staff and the other pastors in that way. Things that, a church of our size, certain things need to be done, but if I can help by taking that burden, that load off of the rest of you guys so that you can do what you're good at, then I think it's a win-win. Yeah.
And I love your heart in that, Ben, and I've seen that over even our years serving together in different ways, is that there is a practical desire to help others by just do these things. And so that there may be people wondering, well, what does an administrative pastor do?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I know that's
the $1 million guy.
That is a huge question. But
what do I do?
For those out there who don't have any frame of reference for that, what kind of things are you involved in?
I will try to do my best to explain it. So, no 2 days look alike for me. I mean, it truly is different all the time. So, generally, what I tell people is I'm in charge of the facilities and all the facility guys, and making sure all that stuff gets taken care of. Greg Witt, just a phenomenal director. He keeps this place in good working order, and so I oversee that. The finances, I have that falls under me, and so just making sure that everything is not only accounted for, but also planned and forecasted properly. So I guess I'm a CFO type kind of role there, just keeping track of all the finances and human resources. So as we have employees coming and going, I help with all that paperwork. And recently I've been put in charge of assimilation, so looking at trying to figure out how to strategically connect with people, the first time they come through those doors, get them involved in a DC membership and service and all those kind of things. So just really getting our folks better connected. And so that's generally what I do.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I don't think people sometimes, maybe with a larger church, there is more of an understanding, but there are a lot of systems and processes that are just part of existence as a organization.
Yeah.
And you help oversee many of those things. And like you say, you are a major support to so much ministry that happens at Heritage, which is great. What would be your favorite part about the job you do?
I think it's that there's something different every day. I love to solve problems, and maybe this is hard to believe from our viewers, but we have problems around here sometimes. And so, just getting in there, rolling up the sleeves, and figuring out how to best solve a problem, or even helping other people solve problems, just knowing what questions to ask, figuring out what is that end goal really, and what is the best way to get there. I really enjoy that part of my job.
And I think I would say that is one of the gifts that I appreciate about you, is because you know the questions to ask. And the best kind of questions you ask are usually uncomfortable. It's
been known to happen. Yeah. Sometimes people don't like being asked questions.
No. Well, we get into the normal flow of things, and then somebody asks that one question that makes us kind of reframe what we're thinking about.
Don't ask why. That's not a fun question. Then you really got to think about what we're doing. So.
And so I do appreciate you and what you do there, Ben, even in those kind of things. When it comes to how people can pray for you as a pastor over administration, what would you ask for prayer for?
Yeah, things are always changing around here. COVID obviously has impacted our staff and our church quite a bit. And so I think just wisdom, not just for me, but for the rest of the pastoral staff as we move forward, I think would be very helpful at this stage.
Excellent. Well, for our last question, I have this deck of cards that have just random questions on them.
Oh, fantastic.
And so
you like random.
It is random, and I surprised Pastor Mike Morricon the other day. He was the very first one to deal with this, and he got like a really tough, thoughtful question.
Oh, man.
Some of these are not so much. So
here
is your question for today. What will people look back at us 50 years from now and be shocked and appalled by? What do you think? Let's do it. How about we focus that on maybe two areas specifically: our world in general, and then the church. What will people look back on in 50 years and go, maybe look at with a not so good look? What do you think?
All right, so I think society in general, I hope will one day look back at email and think it's just ridiculous how much is sent and received every day. It's like the last 20 years we've figured out the internet, and there's this fun thing called email, and man, we just love to use that. And I think one day they're gonna, I'd hope they look back and think, just so much
Why
email.
Did we do this?
Why? Yeah. Why was that a good idea?
Fascinating little stat. I had Morgan running. She's looking at some research and things like that as far as mail is concerned, and it looks like there is a group of people who love getting mail, 18 to 32, and then 65 and older. But that middle part prefer email.
Oh, we love email.
And it's
the
just
more
like,
we get,
wait,
the
I
more
guess
we
I'm
can
in that
send.
age.
Yeah, it is out of control. So, the out of control email culture of this current world. I don't think we've figured out email and how to use it productively. Maybe our kids will figure that out.
So would you say the same thing for the church then?
I know
we
on
like
staff
email.
we like email
a lot.
I love my inbox. It's a lot of fun. Let's see. So that would be as a whole. I'm curious to see 50 years from now if a paper Bible, will that still be a thing, or will we all just have these devices that we read off of?
Yeah.
And so we look back and be like, oh yeah, remember when people had these books that they opened and they read from that? That was kind of silly with all these pages.
How dare they cut down a tree and make a page out of it? Maybe that's
that might be part of it. Yeah. So we'll see if books are still.
Okay.
Yep.
So email and books.
The Bible.
The
Bible. Will it still be in paper form, or is it all digital?
Okay. All right. Yep. Well, I guess in 50 years, when people are still listening to this podcast,
I have no doubt
they'll be asking about those questions. All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today on the Alongside podcast. And I pray that those who are listening, I encourage you to pray for Ben, pray for the pastors, that wisdom that he spoke of. There is a lot of decision making, a lot of these systems and just the practical realities of ministry that many times we don't think about, and Ben and his teams are a big part of that. So just be in prayer for him, and we look forward to talking with maybe you and maybe even the facilities team about how much work it takes to keep up this place.
That'd be a fantastic conversation.
It would be really
might
fascinating.
Blow your mind how many plates we go through a week.
I can't even imagine. So for more of that kind of mind-blowing information, stay tuned to future episodes of the Alongside podcast. Thanks again, Ben, and we look forward to hearing from more pastors here in the future. If you want more information on the Alongside podcast, just visit alongsidepodcast.com. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to talking next time.